Zach's mom.
Did it break anything?
No, it didn't.
Debbie
You
went.
can't.
She shouldn't be doing that anyway.
Debbie Lanier is going through a lot of chemo and radiation for cancer.
Judy Tankersley is getting with us. She was able to take it this week at her immunity level, so I guess it's like
Anybody else?
I have a praise.
Yes, Cheryl.
I have tonight, 2 of my grandsons are getting baptized.
Oh,
They got saved.
Right.
They got saved last week.
Tonight?
Tonight. So that's my oldest son, his daughter, she's the one that got baptized and saved last year. Well, now her brothers, both of them got saved and they're getting baptized tonight. So we're going all the way to get.
I would go to bed. I would not say
I'm
that.
not missing it. I'm just gonna take a nap.
You're not gonna sleep.
First, I need a nap first. You know, sometimes those Baptist churches.
Oh. Andrea and Suzanne traveling back. Is that it? Jeff Cooper had a good week. Got out of the hospital in the apartment now. He's going to be there for another couple of weeks as they continue to watch the stem cells grow. So he goes in and has blood work done every so often, and they verify that everything's working, but the stem cells have taken and they're growing and replacing the old ones. So as of right now, Jessica, that's all I know. Is that right?
Well, I have that they actually have started engrafting.
Yeah, they took it, which is great.
Mike, you'll be having 2 more eye surgeries.
Are they coming today? Or are they out?
I guess Gabe's back in the class.
Oh, she got the little ones.
Well, I have yesterday.
The big bandana, the tornado. We also need to remember the
Yes.
conflict in Israel right now. That's pretty huge this morning. So,
New York and hit earthquake.
lots of things that have been going on, absolutely. Start checking off all the boxes there, doesn't it? Anybody else? If not, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Adam, you open space.
Father, we thank you that we come here this morning, Lord, and celebrate with you things like the up-and-coming baptism, Lord, welcoming new souls into heaven. Lord, what an amazing thing. We also have heavy hearts, Lord, and you know all the prayer requests that were made today. Lord, we know that you'll look after each and every situation. Just be with all of them, and especially thinking about overseas and Israel. Your people there, Lord. We don't know what needs to happen in that situation, God, but you do. And we trust that you'll do. Thank you, we praise you. Help us to learn from this lesson what we need to. Through your word, through James. It's in Jesus' name.
So, we find ourselves in Mark chapter 9, a story that I always tend to put myself, in the position of the dad. Why do I put myself in the position of the dad? Because I are one. It seems to be a pretty natural thing to be the dad for me in this situation. Other people may identify differently. Some may identify as the one that's demon-possessed and has gone through some sort of struggle like that. Some may identify as the disciples who have struggled with prayer and their faith and unable to see God's hand work through them. Some may identify as the Pharisees and the scribes who are just arguing that's even possible, that could even happen. So we've got plenty of options of characters in this story to identify with. I don't mention Jesus right off the bat because I don't know that I've ever identified with him when it comes to this. The reason I say that is because this is immediately following the event on the Mount of Transfiguration. Jesus and James and John and Peter go up to the mountain. Jesus is transformed before their eyes just into this holy, glory-filled display of God's power. They're taken in awe by this wonderful mountaintop, literal mountaintop moment for these disciples where they see Jesus and probably as much as they can see God's glory just displayed to them. And then Jesus and the disciples come down from the mountain, and the first thing they encounter is what? There's a conflict going on when they come down. That reminds me of Moses and Joshua when they come down from Mount Sinai. And the first thing they wind up with is this conflict with the golden calf, right? So these moments with God, these moments of intimacy and God expressing His glory to people are followed in Scripture a lot of times by moments of challenge, moments of conflict, moments of, we're going to talk about faith, but moments of doubt. We have those things that happen in these up and down moments. So they come down from this mountain and wind up seeing the scribes and the disciples in this question, this, it's a conflict. And we'll see why that conflict happened. So let's go to Mark 19, and we'll read
Mark 19?
Mark 9, sorry, Mark 9. I wasn't trying to get that far ahead. Mark 9, thank you for catching it. Let's just read 14, 15, and 16. Just those first three verses.
And when he came to his disciples, he saw a great multitude about them, and the scribes questioning with them. And straightway all the people, when they beheld him, were greatly amazed, and running to him saluted him. And he asked the scribes, what question ye with them?
Okay, he's dead. Thank you. Right there, Sandra. That's it. So he comes down, sees this great crowd with his disciples and the scribes questioning them. From the mountain, they're looking down. Hi, Paisley. Do you have my Sunday school book? Thank you, ma'am. Anybody have Sunday school money, which I totally
Yes.
forgot about? All right, so, amazed. Jesus, from his vantage point, coming down the mountain, he sees this crowd below him, and the scribes questioning. And when the crowd turns around and sees Jesus and his disciples coming down the mountain, they see him and are greatly amazed. Anybody?
It was strong.
It was a strong emotion. The Greek word is only used 4 times in the New Testament. And it means to be awestruck. It means to be alarmed. So it can be both. It can be absolutely in awe of something. They see Jesus coming down and they're absolutely in amazement that he's present, he's there. Have you ever been awestruck by anybody or anything? Just in awe of it?
I saw Mikey,
I knew that.
Tony Smith.
Oh, there it is.
Tina Turner.
Tina Turner?
Yep,
You saw Tina Turner?
I did.
Oh, that would be enough to, See, so, okay, we do that.
I was really young, and I've never been starstruck before until her.
Okay.
And I couldn't even take my eyes off of her.
Yeah.
Tina Turner.
Oh, yeah. Still.
Oh,
With the
yeah,
jet?
yeah, I was that,
Yeah.
absolutely. It was
We see that big black triangle go across the sky, and we all just sort of, took our vows and watched it. That was kind of an awe-inspiring moment, or terrifying, alarmed. That's the other definition of that word, to be alarmed, to be, in Mark chapter 16, that's the context, that's it's translated as alarmed rather than just amazement. So, Jesus comes down, and I bet it was both responses, depending on who you were in the crowd, right? You have some people who are amazed and are just, it's Jesus. At this point in his ministry, he's done so many miracles. This crowd was following to see that, and they were starstruck. It was awe. The others, who may have been on the other side of the coin, who were arguing, who were maybe not on the right side, maybe even the disciples, who we'll read in just a minute, had failed to be able to deliver this boy from the demon. They may be like, oh, here he comes, the boss is back. Something like that. It may be a bit of an alarm. So when we see how they ask him questions later, that may be an accurate assumption. So he asks the scribes a question. Look at the transition here from verse 16 to 17. He asks the scribes, what question you with them? He's talking about the scribes questioning the disciples. What are you asking the disciples? Why are you having this conflict with the disciples? Who answers in verse 17? The father of the child. So that opens up a door here that we might be able to ask, was the father of a child, is the child a scribe? Or was he just so emotional and so distraught that he interrupts the questioning of Jesus with the scribes by telling what the source of the argument is about himself?
I always thought about it as, they're I don't know, it's bickering, you think bickering, heated discussion, regular discussion, but they're not getting to his problem.
Yes. They're not fixing
He turns
anything.
to Jesus to say, here's what's going on.
So you've got this great thing, you've got a conflict, whether it's volatile or not. There's a conflict there. Not getting anywhere with it. The father, can you imagine how, and again, I say I identify with the dad, how painful is it when your kid's hurt? How painful is it when your kids go through pain and suffering and you feel helpless to do anything about it? The helplessness, we're going to tie in that helplessness to faith and doubt in just a minute. So, the kids go back. I got one right here. I got three right here. You have helplessness as a parent, not being able to fix what's wrong. I can't fix it. I can't do anything about it. It's not in my power to fix it. So the dad, we read here in just a minute, has taken his son to the disciples. What had the disciples been doing? Jesus had sent out the 12. He had sent out the 72 at this point. What had they been doing? Casting out demons, healing the sick, preaching the good news. They'd done all of this already. He went to the right place where he had seen or heard God working. He went to that place. And when he got to the place where he thought God could work, God doesn't. He doesn't work through the disciples. He doesn't heal his son with that. Can we all say that we've been there too? And we've seen things happen that we thought, we brought it to church, we had it on the prayer list, we talked about it, we tried to do all we could, and nothing fixed it. We did the right things. I believe the Father did the right things. He went to the disciples. But in amazement, when he sees Jesus coming, he interrupts the question and says, verse 17, Master, I have brought unto thee my son, which has a dumb spirit. He has a term for Jesus that changes throughout the course of this interaction. He begins with the term master, rabbi, teacher. That's the term he's using to reflect respect toward Jesus. May not be complete understanding. It may not be complete faith because he changes as he goes through. He starts off calling Jesus master. And he gives the facts about his son. What is it in verse 17? He has a dumb spirit in verse 18, and wheresoever he taketh him, he teareth him and foameth and gnasheth with his teeth and pineth away. And I spake to thy disciples that they should cast him out, and they could not. So what does this demon do to his son? Let's look at those things individually for a second. What is he doing? What does it say he's doing in verse 17?
Makes him mute.
Makes him mute. He has a spirit that keeps him from being able to communicate. That's tough. By itself, that would be tough. How do you get points across? How do you share information? How can you laugh and share the good times? How do you know what's hurting? You think of an infant that all they know how to do is cry when they're hungry, they're happy, they're sad, they're best themselves. Tell me what's wrong. This kid can't. This kid can't communicate that because of the spirit that's in it. Verse 18, what does he say that he does to him when he takes over? Look at the first little phrase there in verse 18. Wheresoever he taketh him. The demon has control of the motivating, the legs, the arms. The demon is driving this boy. Somehow it has got control of his arms and his legs and takes him. What else does it make him do?
Tears him.
Tear him.
It tears at him. Can you imagine? There are illnesses that cause your insides to hurt and burn. There are things that you can feel from the inside and it just hurts. This is that to a degree that I don't think I can even imagine. That his insides are just ripping apart. It tears him. He foams at the mouth. He can't communicate. He's torn from the inside out. He foams at the mouth. He gnashes and grinds and shows and bares his teeth. Do these remind you of torment that you hear elsewhere? And outside, there will be those wailing and gnashing their teeth in torment. This kid is experiencing somewhat of a fraction of hell on earth. In his body. As a parent, again, I focus on the dad again. I would try anything I could do to relieve this from my kid. I would be in desperation trying to find how to fix it. I would give everything I've got. I believe that's what this dad was doing. Trying everything, going everywhere. When he hears that there's a way for his son to be delivered, where the disciples have already delivered others from demons, he's going to be there. He's going to go there and he's going to find them. He gnashes his teeth and he pineth away. And I was always thinking pineth away is like this old maid that's just sitting in her house, just wishing she could find a husband, you know. But that's not what this means in this version. It means he becomes rigid and becomes immobile. He just can't control his limbs and they just lock up on him. He just does that. I was thinking the other. I read that. That's what I was thinking. He pineth away. So this condition doesn't sound lovely, does it? It sounds horrible. It sounds like hell on earth. And the dad does. He admits to doing what he thought was best. He went to your disciples that they would cast him out because I knew that they were casting out other ones. And they could not. How disappointed are we when our prayers and our requests don't get answered? How do we struggle when we don't see the results of that when we're ready for it? Even when we're desperate for it. I believe this dad was desperate. I have no doubt in my mind he was at his wit's end. I can't imagine what he's going through. So Jesus answers him in verse 19. Someone read verses 19 and 20, please.
He answered him and said, O faithless generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer you? Bring him unto me. And they brought him unto him, and when he saw him, straightway the spirit teared him, and he fell on the ground and wallowed upon him.
So, the dad gives his testimony about his issue with his son, and Jesus' response does not limit itself just to the dad. He talks to us. He talks to everybody there. What does he say? Oh, faithless generation. Okay. I can only, again, try to imagine the dad's reaction to that. I'm here. I brought him to your disciples. That's an act of faith. I did something. And Jesus speaks to the broad audience. He says, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer you? How long shall I put up with you? The dad's like, I just showed up, man. I just brought my kid. Again, I'm presuming that that's what his reaction might have been. But Jesus speaks to a much bigger audience than just the dad. Who is he speaking to, and what do we hear him say? O faithless generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer you? What does Jesus mean by that? Who is he is he admonishing somebody? And if so, who is it? Don't look at me like that. I'm asking a question.
Well, I thought he was just saying, how many times have I told you, mustard seed?
We're going to get to mustard seed in just a little
How
bit.
much? Well, how many times?
So is he admonishing the Father for not having faith? Is he admonishing the disciples for not exercising their, or having enough faith? Is he admonishing the whole Jewish nation for,
Probably all the above.
they had all been, there were customs about exorcising demons throughout. The Pharisees had that. The priests had that.
Their unbelief is still, I think, everybody. Especially, I would say that the Pharisees and the disciples had a little bit more skin in that.
Yes.
Because they were given the covenants of God and still they don't understand.
I think that's, to me, that's what he's really speaking to here, is that you've got those two audiences. You've got the scribes and Pharisees and the disciples who are at conflict about this. And we don't know what they're saying, which would be funny. I mean, it'd be good information to know if the scribes were like, well, what technique are you using? Are you using the approved technique for delivering demons? Is that why it failed? And the disciples went to Jesus, and all we had to do was speak to it, and it would go.
When I read this, I think of his conversation with Nicodemus. I forget exactly what, probably depends on what version you're reading. But are you a master of Israel and still you don't know this?
Yeah. And that is, I think, the overriding theme. For both the disciples have been with him for 3 years or whatever. You should know this. You should know what this takes. And to the legal authorities, you've got the scripture. You've got the word. You should know how to deal with this. And I'm still having to do this for you. To do this for you. Now, miracles. We're going to talk about a miracle in just a second. Who performs the miracle? Who performs any miracle?
God.
God.
God. It's not man. It's not people. God, the action, all comes from God. Now, God requires something from us. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. But the power doesn't come from us. It all comes from God. That's what Jesus is reminding them. How long shall I be with you? This power, this physical power that's right here with you, that has been delivering people all throughout Galilee, been crowds following because they saw him raise Jairus' daughter, but saw people that had been healed, saw lives changed. They saw his power. He's going to disappear soon. He's going to be off the scene for a little bit. How long? It's not much longer. He's asking a rhetorical question. He's not going to be there much longer, and he's going to require of us something. So, he tells the dad, he speaks to the generation, the people, to us, and then he says to the dad specifically, bring him to me. The lesson made a really good point about any healing, about any need that we have, is that we don't bring those to people for healing. We don't bring those needs to people to get fixed or to get taken care of. We bring those needs to God. God uses people God uses events. God uses things. God is the one that makes that whole. And they brought him unto him, and when he saw him, the demon had a response. What does the demon do in verse 20? It tears him apart again. Throws him to the ground. The boy's not able to control his motor skills. He's thrown to the ground, foaming again at the mouth and just in agony, writhing on the ground. Verse 20. Terrible sight. Who's in control? Who is in control? Jesus is in control. Demon's got control of this little boy. Every movement, everything that's going on in this little boy, the demon's got control of it right now. In that little boy. For the moment. The demon, it's not the boy that's in control. It's not the dad that's in control. And Jesus is allowing this demon to take this boy to the ground. That's a tough one for us to swallow. Jesus is standing right there as this demon is afflicting this little boy. Okay, do you see where I'm going with this? Sometimes in the midst of these trials and this suffering, Jesus is standing right there. And that suffering is going on right beside him. Don't we all acknowledge that? Don't we all see it? We know Jesus is right there. The dad's in the right spot. The dad brought his son to the right spot. Jesus is standing right there. And when you get to the right spot, the demon just takes his last gasp to try to hurt this kid, to try to hurt this father, maybe to hurt Jesus' credibility. We don't know what his motivations are. But he takes this
But we
kid.
know he knows it's Jesus, right?
Well, that's where we're getting ready to go. He knows exactly who it is.
Okay, yeah, Jesus hasn't said a word.
He hasn't said a word yet.
He's just in his presence.
He's right here. Brings the boy. The boy comes in there. The demon just takes him to the ground, and he's in agony.
He's been there before.
Not first time. So, he's in agony, Jesus is there. And Jesus, instead of talking to the demon, talks to Dad. What does he say to Dad in verse 21 through 23?
How long has it been like?
Let's read it. Yes, absolutely.
Oh, well, you want to restart?
No, that's you answered the question. You answered the question.
Question, my fault.
Thank you for answering the question. Someone read 21 through 23. No, 24. 21 through 24.
He asked his father, how long is it ago since this came into him? And he said, of a child. And oft times it had cast him into the fire and into the waters to destroy him. But if thou canst do anything, have compassion on us and help us. Jesus said unto him, if thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believeth. And straightway the father of the child cried out and said with tears, Lord, I believe, help thou mine unbelief.
Can you feel that? Can you feel that right there? The father's grief and his last gasp of faith. This is all I got, God. It's all I got. Give me more. So Jesus, as the boy is writhing and in agony, turns to the father. How long has this been going on? I'm a dad, right? I'm at the doctor's office and the dog's like, well, tell me about this. Let's go through this. Fix this now. Jesus goes. Why does Jesus ask about the history of this boy? And why does the father go into this detail about the length and the specifics about what this affliction has looked like, this possession has looked like? Jesus asks how long. Why is how long relevant to Jesus or to anybody that's listening?
It lets the people around and us know like the gravity of this boy's situation. It wasn't just a normal demon, probably. Maybe one a little stronger or something, because we're told later that it only comes out with certain
Preparations.
yes.
Yeah. Duration is important because it establishes that this isn't something that's just made up or new. This is something. Is that TV flashing? That one is flashing and driving the wall. Jessica, can you see if it's plugged in right?
Well, me as a mom, see, I thought,
Go ahead, go please.
well, just that thing of how long did you wait?
Yeah,
Come to me.
yeah.
Or you can't.
How long did you?
Oh,
think
that's
you
great,
fixed
Terry.
it? See?
Yeah, why have you been trying to manage this yourself for so long?
Well, it could be like the woman with the issue of blood. He's asked for everybody.
The lesson said that was probably an option, that he had gone to the priests, had gone to the synagogues and looking for Pharisees and leaders of the law to use their knowledge of Scripture to help with the deliverance. We don't know that. But I can see that being the case. It's like, right, Jesus, you waited till the last minute? You waited till it got so bad that you couldn't do anything? That's a possibility. I don't know that. But it is a very big possibility.
It's just a human trait.
It is in all of us. And that's one of the things that lesson brought out is how often do we try to solve problems on our own before we go to the Master?
And we know Jesus is standing right here.
And we know Jesus is standing right here. Don't we all? What's our first response to an issue?
Or call your best friend.
Or call your buddy, or, you know, I've got these contacts, I know those people, they're good at this, maybe they can help us.
Or we go to God first and don't have the patience to wait on it.
Oh, that's a good one too. Or we don't believe enough to go to God. Our problem's too small, our problem's too big, our problem's immaterial in the grand scheme of things. We can think of dozens of reasons, but we don't want to bother God with our big problems because it's just us. That's why we don't bring them to church sometimes too, right? We don't bring them to our friends and our family because this is just between me and whatever. I can handle it.
It made me look a little bad.
Or it's embarrassing.
Or it's embarrassing, yeah. I can't imagine being the dad of this kid and it can't take the kid anywhere. I just can't take him anywhere. Because he goes into these fits and he goes into this, he tries to drown him, tries to put him in the fire, it's trying to go, I can't take him out to our normal festivals and holidays and family get-togethers because he's constantly making a scene and it's just, the trauma there has got to be tough. So he goes through that. In verse 22, the dad says, it's so often that he just tries to kill him. Now this demon possession of trying to destroy this young man, I don't understand. I don't understand demonology enough to understand what the focus of this was, other than just trying to just be physically painful and annoying to humans. Maybe there was a purpose for that demon to do that for this young kid, that we're trying to draw people away from Jesus and toward something else. I think that's what they do. Is that they try to put ideas and thoughts and actions in place that draw people away from Jesus. That didn't succeed, did it? This demon did just what he needed to do to get this father and this son in the presence of the Master. Stupid. We put him into this act of desperation, going to the disciples, leading him to Jesus, that would be the one place that the boy could get healed. Okay, now, do we get to points of desperation? Are we carried to the edge of the cliff sometimes by our own actions or by how we think we're supposed to take matters into our own hands and fix it, and we get to the point where it's so desperate, guess what? Jesus is standing right there. I love that. I think that's really cool. Sometimes we do it on purpose. It's me, I've got to do this. Sometimes we do things inadvertently, and it brings us to the feet of Jesus. That's what happened with this dad. And if you can do anything, isn't that what we ask? So similar to how we pray sometimes. Jesus, if you can do this, please have compassion and help us. He did not say, deliver my son from this oppression of the demon. He didn't say, free us from this captivity. He didn't say that. He said, if you can, help us. Sometimes we don't know what needs to be done. Sometimes our faith isn't big enough to say what needs to be done or to ask for what needs to be done. Sometimes our faith is, Jesus, just show up, and that's enough. Help. That was his prayer. His prayer was, Jesus, help. And Jesus' response, he uses his own words. If you can, believe. That's how he comes back. The guy asks Jesus, if you can, help us. Jesus responds to the guy, if you can, believe. Right? That's how he just turns that if you can phrase back around on him. If you can believe, all things are possible to him that believes. If you can, believe all things are possible. And I don't know where those commas are supposed to be in there, because it makes the phrase sound a little different depending on how you read it. If you can believe, all things are possible. If you can, believe all things are possible to him who believes. There's kind of a little difference there. I like it. I like both of them. And straightway, immediately, the dad cries out. This is like one of the most famous phrases, and I think all of us identify with this phrase to some extent. Lord, I believe, help thou my unbelief. Tell me how that applies. How does that phrase, I believe, help my unbelief, apply to us? How do we recognize that statement or that position with Christ in us? I do. I got little faith sometimes. Sometimes I have doubt that's bigger than that faith. Any thoughts about that one? Sorry.
Sometimes our faith will get us so far, but we don't have enough to get us the whole way.
Thank you, Mila. We got faith to get us to the door, but we don't have faith that'll open it and let us go in? Is that what you're saying? Sometimes we have faith to get there. We don't have faith to finish. That's kind of how I see it. So that word help, I meant to have that earlier. To run to the aid of those who cry for help. He's asking Jesus to run to his side to help him. Help my unbelief. Help get rid of it. Help me to deal with it. Help me to change that unbelief into faith. I've heard people say that doubt is not the opposite of faith. I've heard people say that fear is the opposite of faith. And the doubt everybody has. It happens. Just like his dad. You can still have faith and doubt. Those two things can exist at the same time, and I don't know how. The opposite of faith is being afraid when it happens, or when it doesn't happen. And what the Spirit causes us to run, causes us to hide, causes us to fight. Those are the things that fear does. This fear for the life of his son caused this dad to run toward Jesus. It was enough faith to get him there. So Jesus does what Jesus does, right? What does he do? Nothing yet. Still nothing yet. Remember, the boy's still writhing. Dad has just given this immense cry for help. When Jesus saw the people running together, why did he wait until he saw the people running together in verse 25? There's a pause before Jesus acts and calls this spirit out. What is the instigation of him doing that? What does it have to do with the people running together? Okay, all right. We'll talk about that tonight.
James can help you with anything
I
you need.
guess I'm going to help them with anything they need. You are dismissed from Sunday school.